What's going on, everyone? I got food in my mouth. It's terrible timing. How
Yeah,
you guys
was it?
doing tonight?
I just looked up and I was like, it looks like I'm picking my nose. I wasn't picking my nose, I promise. I remembered
No
that the
worries.
camera
It's
was
all
on.
good. It's all good. It's all right. We all family here. We all family.
Was I the only one not doing something precarious when the live stream started?
Well, you were already streaming, so you should be all right.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Hi, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of a Stoked Podcast. I am Javon Stokes. I am your host. For those that don't know me, I am a writer, artist, entrepreneur. I can even play the drums. Yeah, I didn't even know that, but I can play the drums. To my left, actually, before we get into introducing the host, today is going to be a little different. We are going to do kind of round table style, right? Where we're going to talk about a particular topic. I'm going to do these kind of frequently so that everyone understands, so that everyone understands this is going to be something different where we take a topic and we bring on people who have experience in the topic as well as people who have hey, I'm
Hey,
right on
what's
time. I haven't even
going on?
gotten into it yet, but that's all right. We're going to talk about a specific topic today. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship within comic books as well as the state of comics, both professional and in indie. I am very blessed to have three very talented, very successful people to next to me. I'm not this way. I have Sarah White from Unlikely Heroes Studios. I got Brandon Jackson. All right. I call you BJ, so I never, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. So,
yeah.
Jackson is my last name.
Yeah.
Right now, I got the whole. Y'all remember that commercial where it was like that was censored, and then the chick like did like this to drink some water? Y'all,
Oh yeah.
but
Brandon Jackson, who is podcaster as well as a writer, right, and artist, if I'm not mistaken.
neither of those.
I
So
thought you were a writer, but you do a ton of reviews of comic books
Yes.
on your particular podcast.
yes,
And also I have Chauna.
It's pronounced Chauna.
Right?
Yes.
Chauna. Okay,
Or
but
C, hence the
CC the
because
geek.
people struggle with
who's done a HBC UConn for the last how many years?
We had our inaugural virtual event in 2021, and we're having our inaugural hybrid, so that's live and virtual, this upcoming April 29th. We were established in 2018 though. So we've been
All
doing
right.
like panels and pop-up stuff since 2018.
And I was supposed to make it this year. I'm trying really hard. I got some scheduling conflicts, but if I don't come this year, I'm definitely coming next year.
I know
But
that's
I
great.
will do my best. I know we talked about it. I was so psyched on coming, and then
I know.
stuff happened. But nonetheless, for today's panel, and I don't know, Morgan and Danny might be popping their heads in every now and again. So I'm hoping that they can jump on BJ and witness protection. Yes, feel free, everybody, to post in the chat, and I will give answer, and I will, let people know the questions, and we can dive into those. But what I wanted to do for this show is kind of talk about different facets of the industry. So we have somebody who does reviews, we have somebody who does Comic Cons, and we have someone who's actually in the nitty gritty with editor, right? Sarah?
A little bit of everything as far as like making the comics, yeah.
Right. And Danny and Morgan were supposed to be on, but I'll take their place and do, I make comic books, so I can speak on that. But I really wanted to talk about entrepreneurship within comic books and basically how people doing it on their own. Because, all of us know a ton of independent comic book creators, and, all of them have different varying levels of success. but I want to talk about the impact of the industry on indies, as well as, there are certain topics we're going to talk about things that are happening within the comic book industry. And I'm just really interested to hearing your guys' point of view. So let's get started. I almost X'd out the whole thing.
Oh my gosh, I did that once. It was horrifying. I was so horrified.
All right. So first and foremost, I'm going to ask each of you this question. And if you could, just tell me how you kind of got to this point. I'm going to start with Sarah, because Sarah was first. She was first person on. We're going to do first to last and then last to first. So first and foremost, Sarah, what drew you to work within the comic book industry?
You know what? It's funny because I actually had just zero interest in the comic book industry at all. And then Lori, everybody knows Lori, right? She and I were friends before I even knew that we met ages before I think maybe even before she got into comics, like creating comics. I'm not even sure. I'll have to ask her that. But she messaged me one day in an absolute panic. She's like, "You're a graphic designer, right?" And I was like, I am. And I was like, and she goes, "Do you know how to letter?" And I was like, "You're gonna have to be more specific." and she's like comic books. Like, "Do you know how to letter comic books?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a pretty straightforward process, right?" So she's like, said something about their letterer disappeared on them or something, and she's like, "Can you help us?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And then then when I get in here and I got in there and I started to learn about it, and I was like, "This is cool. I want to stick around." So that's what I did.
Okay, all right, Brandon, what got you to become not just a passive reader, but kind of somebody who reviews and kind of is in the nitty gritty, dealing with creators in their particular comic books and things of that nature?
Quite frankly, pregnancy, right? So I got into comics in 2019. Just passive fan reading books. I had a pull list starting with House of X, Powers of 10. That's what got me into comics. And it's the passion for it just kind of grew out of that. So I was always reading books and jumping in people's live streams and stuff like that, like just buying books up. Found out my wife was pregnant October 2020. And I was like, all right, well, I can buy diapers or I can buy comics, right? So let me do something. Let me do something to where I can make up what I'm spending in my pull list. And so I started my YouTube channel. Honestly, I was starting the YouTube channel anyway, but I had this impetus, all right, I got to figure out if I can monetize this before the baby comes. That was the whole goal. And I did a crazy sprint. My daughter came early. She was born in March and she was supposed to be born in June.
Wow.
But by that time I had already kind of built up the habit. And so through her time in the NICU, kind of doing videos about comics was one of the things that kind of kept my mind off of having a baby in the hospital for 3 months. And so it's kind of through that and through the community that I was building at the time, who kind of supported my family through that whole ordeal, just kind of made me fall in love with the medium more. So my background is I'm actually a marketer. I do marketing consulting, social media advertising for musicians as well as small businesses. And so building my platform as just a content creator as opposed to an educator, I've been particularly interested in helping to bring more business acumen into comics. So I've been able to get sponsorships and work on brand integrations and see, okay, well, what makes sense? How do we bring more commerce into this, right? Everybody's trying to sell their art, right? But what ways does it make sense to sell where we're not just hey, I made something, buy it because I made it.
Nice. That's beautiful, man. That's a beautiful story. Congratulations on your how old now?
She'll be a year old on the 20th. I'm planning a birthday party right
now. That's an interesting age, man. That's the erratic sleep schedule age.
Absolutely.
Before you go, shout out to Dennis Cohen. Big fan. The fact that you're watching my show is, I'm trying not to geek out. So trying not to geek out. I'm gonna keep it calm. This is me keeping it calm. But in my inside, I'm doing the bat 2C.
I've been in that position.
Listen, I'm sub Kenji. I'm gonna get to everybody's questions, so I promise. But we gotta get through the intros first. Chauna.
Yes.
I'm killing your name, so I'm gonna call you Cece.
It's okay. You got one of your idols watching me though, so you win it.
I know, right? Cece, tell me, how did you get from being a fan? How do you get from being a fan to now, putting on and promoting Comic Cons?
Oh gosh. So I've pretty much, been a nerd all my life. I got labeled it long before it was ever something I embraced or saw as a culture. And just coming up in the DC area in particular, it was always something that was kind of like a part of my life. Not even just comics in particular, but like my parents are very much into science fiction. My mom named me after Star Trek. She named me after Shauna Treskelion from the original Star Trek series. So it's it kind of runs.
Okay.
Like they don't even know. I think they're just now coming to the realization of how nerdy they are. But
they kind of put you on the path. You ain't had no choice.
Yeah, no, I was definitely predisposed, like big time. So yeah, that kind of was bound to happen. And really how I got into all of this was through cosplay. That was essentially how I started in terms of like actually being involved in the community in that sense. And started getting involved. And at the time I became a cosplayer, I had just recently started kind of embarking on my journey of full-time activist work, where it was something that I had always done on a volunteer basis. But at this point it was like, okay, now I'm in this career path. So I was always trying to look for ways to kind of bridge my activism with my nerdiness, if you will. So I wound up, helping different organizations, putting together different events, both in and out of the geek world, and including in my professional life, just putting together workshops around the country, talking about this program we had called Compassionate Care, basically helping care providers be more competent when it comes to helping folks who might have a different walk of life than they're accustomed to. But at any rate, as I was matriculating through the community, I had always kind of conceptualized this idea of having a Greek and geek event, because something that I kind of came across when I first started cosplaying was a lot of folks there was a lot of gatekeeping around being a nerd. One, around, because you're Black, two, because you're a woman. And then there was also this element of, oh, you're in a sorority, so you're not a real nerd. And that was really like off-putting to me. So I just wanted to try to find ways to kind of celebrate the myriad of different things that kind of not only made up who I am, but also a lot of my friends and things of that nature. And in 2017, I conceptualized HBCUCon and wound up getting the EIN and trademark at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And ever since it, I put it out there to folks in the community, it kind of just took on a life of its own, if you will. It really did. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at now. We're building this community to celebrate and bridge the gap between historically Black colleges and Black geeks at large, to bring you the Black Geek Homecoming experience. So just really excited to, to kind of bring this new piece, because I feel like it's something that we could all benefit from and celebrate.
Awesome.
Thank
So
you.
for those that don't know, I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of my backstory. I am a second generation artist from both my parents. My dad was a musician, actually played saxophone for, I believe, like a ton of people like James Brown, You know, he was a traveling, you know, he played for everybody. My mom was a traditional painter. She's very well known within our industry. I personally have always loved comics. It's actually one of the it's how I learned to read at a earlier level. It was very very much like my mom giving me a comic book. I would be like, what does this word mean? She'll be like, go look it up. And I'm going to the dictionary, and you know, after a while, you kind of your vocabulary grows. What's up, Danny? Danny, you need to be on the show. But when I was younger, I would always make these little, you know, comic books when I was a kid. But I ended up going to Savannah College of Art and Design for a degree in 3D animation. And it's funny, Brandon, you talked about how, you know, the impetus for you starting your reviews was pregnancy. The impetus for me starting my career in comics was my impending marriage. I had kind of realized that when I become a husband and then eventually a stepfather, I wasn't going to have as much time to really get started in the industry as I was. So I just literally sat down at my kitchen table and drew my first book, like start to finish. Like, you know, it took me a few months because I do everything. But from that point, I did a Kickstarter, failed, then did it again, successful. And from ever since then, Heat and Visually Stoked has kind of been growing and growing and growing. And that's where I am here right now. It's been an interesting journey, to say the least. So like I said, I want to talk about entrepreneurship in this, but I also want to talk about things that are going on in the comic book industry. And one of the biggest topics, and I'm pretty sure you guys have all talked about this in one podcast or another, but I really wanted to talk about the renewed impact and influence and diversity within the industry. Be it talent, be it creation, be it stories. Right now, it seems to be very much like the in thing, and I'm once again, I'm very jaded when it comes to things because I've been reading comics for so long, but it's very much the fad now. How does it affect your particular corner within the industry, and what are your opinions on, you know, how do you feel about this kind of groundswell of diversity within the actual comic book culture? Cece, since you went last, I'm gonna have you go first.
Okay. Well, for one, and I think we had this conversation the other day, at least a little bit, but I think that it's something that's overdue and needed. Of course, I think particularly with the release and the earnings of Black Panther, it almost started, like you said, there's a trend now, right? Where even when it comes to the HBCU stuff, like when Beyonce did Homecoming, like, okay, now everybody's on that wave. Everybody's trying to have some type of HBCU thing going on or whatever. But I think that the same thing rings true in the comic community. On one end, we need the diversity and representation. It's something that should have always been there, and should be something that's like made to be more sustainable and not just kind of like a touch and go type of a thing. I think that what's going to probably be more essential to kind of, because I think you had raised the point where it's like, oh, they're just making every character Black just because they can, instead of really like building out the character's identity and like their growth and development. And in all honesty, we could really take this as an opportunity to uplift and provide more on-screen content for indie creators and like mediums. So I think that those are different things. But at the same time, there's also a lot of characters who are in, you know, like the DC or Marvel Image comics and things who haven't been celebrated or highlighted enough. And I feel like we could tap into that as well. So there's plenty of room to like do it right.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anybody want to jump in?
Sure. I mean, it's at points it does feel like we're in like the UPN age of comics, right? Where it's
Oh
like
my gosh.
it's like let's do it all. Let's
At least
put
you
them
didn't
all
say
there.
WB.
But I mean, so but it's interesting, right, to have this conversation about diversity in comics. And it's really a conversation that we're having, period, right? Like diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's like every company in the world is hiring a head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does this person do? I'm not sure. Are we just making sure Black people get hired? What does that really look like? Right? We're kind of defining these terms as we go. But it's interesting that we're having this conversation with Dennis Cowan in the chat, right? Dennis Cowan, might be.
You're more than welcome to come on, Dennis. I'll send you the link right now. Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead, Brandon.
But so Dennis is one of the founders or co-founders of Milestone Media, right?
Right.
On record as the most successful Black-owned comic publisher, who is known for their real push for diversity, and not just diversity of ethnicity, but diversity of thought, diversity of background, right? And these books came out in '93, and we're still having these conversations now, and it's interesting. Part of the reason I started my YouTube channel, right, was I was getting into comics, and I was like, oh, this is dope. So I'm like, naturally you look up stuff on YouTube, and what I was running into a lot were the anti-diversity crowd, right? They were just super loud, like, oh, it's woke and SJW and whatever, that crowd. And at points, I was just like, dang, like, it was so bad that I'm like, if I'm walking into the comic shop, like, are the people that are in the shop, like, do they feel like these people feel, or whatever? So a part of the reason I was like, all right, well, let me start a YouTube channel was like, well, there's got to be somebody that looks like me who might read some of the stories that I read, out there. And I don't know, I don't have anything against diversity, right? Like, if it's such a huge part of my channel has been like my journey to collect all the Milestone comics. Spoiler alert, since there are people in the chat from my group, I have finished my run. The unboxing is coming soon. But so much of my journey has been like that, and it's been about what that representation meant to me, like seeing Static and Icon and like all of these things, right? And so I love that that's there. But I also understand the side of this conversation where it's like, are we just kind of painting everything Black, right? Like I was reading the issue of Miles Morales, and I couldn't get past the dialogue. It was like somebody had just watched Paid in Full and was like, oh, okay, that's how Black kids in Brooklyn talk. Let's just do that. And I'm like, everybody can't be money in this book. Like, so it's interesting because it's like we want like the image of diversity, but even now there's not as much diversity in the creators, at least not at the top levels. And so the product falls flat.
Yeah.
So it's a weird space to be in.
Yeah. Sarah, did you want to jump in? I'm going to say something, but did you want to give your 2 cents?
I mean, I am embarrassingly behind the curve when it comes to the whole, to even just recognizing that there's a need for diversity. Like I just, I live in a small town, I'm from a small town. Everybody's the same as I am. So I am like, it didn't even occur to me that this was a thing. And I was way too old to not realize that. So now that I'm behind, I'm so far behind the curve that I'm just like, this is great. Everything is great. I'm so glad to see that this is happening. And I am not entirely sure that I even understand what it all means. And I feel like I am like right now, like I'm listening to you guys talk and I'm just like, I'm learning a crap ton right now. And I just want to shut up and listen. So
that's okay.
But I mean, as far as the explosion of people in general coming to comics through, like, I know the pandemic had a ton to do with it because people in 2020 suddenly found themselves with nothing to do but stare at the walls because they couldn't go to work anymore. So that was a good boost to our industry. But
Right.
but yeah, like I'm curious about if there's a way we can find out retention numbers, like how many people are still reading comics that started in 2020. I'd be very curious to see that.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
my perspective on this is different. And CC kind of alluded to it before. Um, I I've been reading comics for a long time. So I remember certain things that happened previously. Like, I know there's a lot of like, oh, let's do a black Spider-Man and a black Captain America and a female Wolverine and all this other stuff. And for me, I've seen this before. War Machine, it was basically Black Iron Man long time ago. Monica Rambeau was Black Captain Marvel. Like I've seen these things, and my problem is I've seen these characters get shuffled to the back once the fad was over. And that has made, once again, I joke, but I'm a little jaded, and I've seen this happen before, and it makes me go, all right, well, hey, listen, it's great that we have a black Spider-Man, but let's see how long he lasts, and hopefully, we'll see him again at some point, and I hate that I feel that way, but I've seen the comic book industry use these things and use diversity and as Danny pointed out, legacy characters to kind of give the real characters a break. And then once those characters are ready to come back and all shiny and new, prop them back up. So that is what I'm afraid will happen to like Miles Morales. It's already happened to Jane Foster as Thor. It happened to Sam Wilson as Captain America, and I understand that. Yeah, I'm with Dennis. Like taking a white character and turning them black to me is lazy. Like there's a wealth of original black characters that need love and shine. That to me, let's use these guys. Like I tell people all the time, I love Steel. And the reason why I love Steel is because even when he was introduced, he wasn't introduced. He physically he would say, "I'm not Superman. Don't call me Superman." You know what I mean? Like that was, that was the that's why I loved him, because it wasn't like he was a clone of Superman. He was his own thing. And to Brandon's point, that's why I loved Milestone. Now Milestone is full of archetypes, and I loved archetypes. And I understand archetypes exist, but they were their own characters. Static was Static. Mm-hmm. Icon was Icon. Hardware was Hardware. And you could try to fit them into the black Iron Man or black Superman, but it would never fit. Right. Like, and Milestone made a point of making sure that it never fit. But what I do love about the wave of diversity that has happened is we're seeing more black talent. That is more important to me than having Dennis, if you want to come on the show, man, listen, just let me know. I'll give you the link. But I'm love that I'm seeing more black talent front and center in the industry than I can remember in a very long time. And not only are they front and center, they're like popular. Mm-hmm. Like and I'm gonna butcher her name, but Afua, am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Afua Richardson.
Afua Richardson is a star. And I can't remember a time, like even back when Wizard was big and they were showing, the faces of artists. I can't remember a time where they were like showing like a black artist as being popular, and I can go on all the guys from I always forget the name of their book. It's becoming a movie.
So every book.
I know it's Sanford Green is doing it. He does art.
Oh, Bitterroot.
Bitterroot. Like there's like they're becoming stars. Like, by the way, shout out to Sanford Green. Dude he met him. He treated me like he known me for years. So shout out to him. But I just worry that I'm okay with the talent staying. I worry about the characters that they are using being shuffled to the back. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Dennis is he's gonna jump on.
Oh,
so yeah, feel free to if you want to keep talking.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you on IG. Real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's send it to him, please. But yeah, like I'm happy. And Sarah, I got to be honest with you. Your answer was honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we need people to admit that they don't know and they want to learn. And
yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that I'm not screwing up too badly, I guess. Like,
no, okay.
I don't want to, I don't want to be that guy,
No, listen, it's perfectly fine. Like I had you on because I wanted different perspectives and different points of views.
Yeah, well, I can definitely provide that, I guess.
Well, so let me ask you this.
I know I'm the only person I know that lives in a tiny little village, or I used to. I don't now, but I did. Like, I grew up there.
But you're also coming from the perspective of somebody who you said you weren't into comic books at all.
No, not at all. I think I read one issue of a Superman that I found at my cousin's place when I was visiting once, and that was like the only comic I had ever read or touched or anything. Like, and no, I guess I mean, I didn't realize that Spider-Man was a comic, because to me it was just that TV show that I watched on Saturday mornings. I had no idea until I was much older that it was actually it was not a TV show first. It was not a cartoon.
I'm the same way. Like, so
go ahead.
Growing up, my grandmother lived in New York when I was growing up. And so we'd go to her house for the summer, and one of my uncle's friends, like, I don't know if he worked at a comic shop or what, but he would just bring Rite Aid bags full of comics. And that was our summer entertainment. But I legit did not know that comics existed outside of New York until, 4 years ago?
Really?
Yeah, like I never saw them here growing up. I'm in North Carolina.
Hold on. Let's welcome the legend.
Oh my
Dennis
God.
Cohen. Oh,
Listen,
man.
that.
Come on now.
I actually am working while I'm talking to you. I'm not kidding.
That's all right. That's all right. I've admired this man's artwork for a long time. So him on my show is like, once again, I'm geeking out. This is cool.
No.
I
just want to join wherever BJ kicks is. That's where I gotta show up.
That's all right.
I appreciate it.
He's just cracking up. He's like, what is this?
Listen,
so
man.
Dennis, if you want to give us your perspective on, the newfound, love affair with diversity in comics, I would love to hear.
It's not newfound. I mean, it's newfound now, I guess. But as you pointed out before, it's something that had been around, in the 90s, even what was it, the 70s? You can go back to, Black Lightning with Trevor Von Eaton, as an original black character coming out, and they made a big deal about that. I remember that. Like that was a bracketed moment. That was DC's answer to Luke Cage in a way,
Right.
So there's always been some kind of movement around that kind of thing. When we did our thing in the 90s with Milestone, if you remember, there was a lot of characters like that. Right after we did our thing, then there was like a NIA started up, like this whole organization. Remember that? With their black comic books.
Yep.
Marvel started doing some stuff with their characters. It was just like it ignited something. But this recent thing feels to me a bit like the old days in a way, because I feel like I've seen it before. So now I'm at that, okay, let's see what happens next. I've seen people pile on. I've seen people like, no, we're in the now we're going to do black superheroes now. for real. And then nothing happens, or very little happens. So now I'm in a wait and kind of see mode. That being said, it's encouraging. I like it. I like seeing diversity. I mean, any step forward is good. If people are making a step forward by hiring diversity managers or hiring people who are put in charge of that kind of thing, and they're making those steps, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Taking a step is taking a step.
That's right.
What you do after that step, that's the follow-up is what the important thing is too. Yeah. So let's see what happens. I mean, they're doing stuff at DC, they're doing stuff at Marvel, they're doing stuff at different companies, but what's the real end result? Are you really gonna put the programs in place? Are you really putting your money where your mouth is? I know DC is, and I'm not just being a shill. They really are. I'm part of it. We're doing the Milestone Initiative. We're doing all that stuff. That's real. That's actually helping people and working with people and doing something. But how are people going to really step up?
Right.
With these people who are put there to hire Black people to put in these positions. Okay, what does that mean? No, I'm a wait and see kind of brother. I'm like, let's wait and see.
Right. Now, are you seeing a change in the talent being implemented? Are you seeing enough of a change that's actually tangible, or do you still think that they're a little bit behind?
Remember, I see more Black talent, more diverse talent in comics.
Specifically in the big two, because they're everywhere in the indies, like they're everywhere. But
I do see it. Because in my job, I get a lot of artists across my desk that we should be looking at now. A lot of them are really busy. A lot of them are whatever. There is a change. There are Black comic book creators now doing stuff, but they're not doing stuff. They're doing stuff in mainstream. Clayton Henry, I think that's his name. Yes, a Black artist. He's a Black artist.
I didn't know that, by the way. I had no idea.
Right. All mainstream, and it's all good. You do that mainstream stuff. You've got Ken Lashley and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly focus on mainstream comics, and we need that too. So I see it. I see people doing stuff. I think it's good. I see some young people, Nicholas Draper-Ivy, our artist on Static.
Awesome.
For that new generation,
Yeah.
But I think part of the thing too is to attract people to a medium, to attract talented people to a medium. That medium has to earn them money.
Yeah.
Right? You only get talented people where the money is.
Oh yeah.
So you can really love comics, as we all do, but if you can't make a real living out of it, that's hard to attract the top talent. They're going to do something else with their artistic talent.
Right.
So,
right.
you have to pop that part up too to make it more attractive to people like us to want to get into this industry and not start yet.
That's a great segue. You're already providing value. That's a great segue, because I want to get into, because I did want to talk entrepreneurship with this, because we're all dealing on some level with independent artists. I'm an independent comic book creator.
Right.
Sarah has an independent comic book. She's part of an independent comic book
Sarah
company.
from a small town with not many people in it.
That's all right. You do what you got to do.
Magic of the internet, right?
But so Afro Sci-Fi's, am I saying it right? Ask the question: do you think Kickstarters and GoFundMe's are a sustainable way for indie comics to continue?
Mm-hmm. I sure hope so. That's how we make our money. 95% of our revenue is from being able to have successful Kickstarters.
My issue, speaking as a marketer, with Kickstarter is so much of the draw is the platform itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so my background is the music industry, and we had a Kickstarter competitor called Pledge Music, right? Pledge Music took a bunch of outside capital and basically mismanaged a whole bunch of funds didn't deliver people's rewards and went by the wayside, right? And so if you were a musician who was impacted by that, like you just didn't get to fund your album. You didn't get you didn't get the benefit of it, right? And so not to say that that would happen with Kickstarter, but I'm always wary of us not owning the supply chain, right? And now again, I think it's great to start. If I'm funding a project for the first time, I want to put my project wherever the most eyes are going to be, right? If I'm a songwriter, my music's got to be on Spotify or nobody's going to hear it.
Right.
But people have to be able to discover you and then go back to your home, right? And so you got to be able to build a list. You got to be able to learn like marketing in other ways, whether it's public relations, whether it is experiential marketing, like going to cons, things like that. Like, but you've got to be able to figure out who's my customer. You might find a customer from Kickstarter, but who's that person? Why do they like me? And where can I find more of them? Because they're not all on Kickstarter, right? Like I found Excellence, Brandon Thomas and Kari Randolph. I found that on Kickstarter, but then I went to the comic shop to buy the rest of the series.
Right.
You know? And it's like, you got to be able to, it's dangerous in my opinion to rely on one platform for all your revenue goals.
That's what we want to do. Like that's our ultimate goal is to not need Kickstarter. We are currently trying to use it as like a jumping board to you know, we're using it as like our like go look at our Kickstarters, you know, so if we want to get into comic book stores, like starting small with a little, you know, all the local places and saying, hey, if you want to check out our stuff, you can go look at our Kickstarter page and see that we've done all these successful campaigns with all these great books. And ultimately, the goal is to not rely on it, to have our stuff in stores all over the place and to be able to, you know, I imagine we'll use it as long as we're around, as long as it's around. We plan to be around for a long time, so but yeah, like as long as Kickstarter's a thing, we'll probably keep using it, but we ultimately want to not rely on it, because what BJ said, it's probably not, it's like the putting your eggs in one basket adage is probably not a great idea to do that. So that's definitely our goal, is to not need it.
So let me ask you this.
I was just gonna say I'm in line with what Brandon with BJ. I'm gonna call you BJ. What BJ is saying. I've done 2 Kickstarters. I did one Kickstarter for the first issue of my book, and then I did another for a graphic novel. But I'm trying to, once again, I do think it should be used almost specifically like the name implies. Like you use it to kickstart the series that you want, and then you take that money and then you find a way to sell outside of it. Like I sell my books through my website. Like if you want to buy my books, you go through the website. When I put up my new book will be pre-ordered through the website.
Right.
And what I do is I put up there it is right there. If you go to visuallystoked.com, what I do for my new books is, okay, you put in a pre-order, but I put up my money to buy, say, 25 to 50 books. Right? And then I keep flipping.
Yeah.
And because that to me it's less work, because there's so much that goes involved with doing a Kickstarter. It's almost counterproductive to being a creator, because you know what I mean? You spend so much time, I got to come up with, you know, stickers,
tears
and everything like that. And instead of using that, instead of taking all the energy into that, you should be using the energy towards marketing the books that you want. And I think there are a lot of creators who just rely on Kickstarter so much that I don't want to be one of the people that if Kickstarter went away tomorrow, I don't want to be screwed.
Does Kickstarter give you the contact information for the people that pledge? Like, do you get their emails and stuff?
Yeah.
So, it should be super easy, theoretically, the second time around. You just email the people that backed you the first time. They pre-order the book. You can, it's wholesale pricing, so you can set aside a print run, and then it's limited edition, but it's paid for by the pre-orders, right? You don't have to like run a whole 30-day campaign, try to put all these extras that just add into your cost of goods sold,
Yep.
right? Taken away from your margins. Plus, Kickstarter's taking what, 25%?
Yikes.
Like, so
Yeah, I do think there is a little bit of, you got to stand on your own 2 feet at some point, and like I go back and forth about doing another Kickstarter, but I'm already the main talent on my own books. I don't have time to come up with tiers. I don't have time to come up with, all right, let me make a new poster or let me make some stickers. Like, no, look, here's my book. If you're gonna buy it online. I'll work. I personally make most of my money through Comic-Cons, which is a segue into the next question. But I make most of my money through selling my book at Comic-Cons. And once again, so getting into the next piece of the topic, the influence of Comic-Cons on indie creators, like, and CC, and I know you're going to have a wealth of this, and Dennis, I know you're a veteran in the industry in Comic-Cons. What would you suggest? What advice would you give to people, indie creators starting out in the industry, and how they approach utilizing Comic-Cons and the professional aspect of how they should perform within Comic-Cons, if that makes any sense?
Absolutely. I think the fact that you had mentioned, and you're not I think every comic creator I know has said this, they make by far most of their revenue doing shows. It's because of that human connection and interaction, the storyteller, and they're forming that almost a bond with you. And it's like they're falling in love with you as much as they are your story. So that is a huge segue to kind of like building your brand and getting your story out there. I definitely would recommend establishing yourself with like up and coming conventions, so that as they grow, you become like a staple for those events. It's a lot easier to do that than to try to get into like New York Comic-Con or Katsicon or what have you. Now, if you have connects there, then that's great. You can do that. Or I would also advise doing panels as well. And you can kind of use that as another segue to tell your story, talk about why you're doing it, what it is that you do. And it makes it more organic and less gimmicky. And people ultimately buy your stuff even more. So, yeah, that's kind of like at a base level what I would suggest. I'm sure Mr. Cohen's got some wonderful Easter eggs that he could drop though.
No, because my experience with Comic-Cons has been different. I was just thinking about that. Like when I got into the industry, the Comic-Cons were just kind of starting. It wasn't like a big thing. So the San Diego Comic-Con was held not even in San Diego, it was held in a different place. It was called the San Diego Comic. I remember because I would go there, and it was small and anyone could get in, and it wasn't like a big pop culture event. It was another con. It was a big one. You got to go to California. That was San Diego. You got to go. And over the years, I saw it grow, but I was never in it as an independent creator trying to get in, trying to get on. So my perspective was always a little different. It was always like a little bit more inside already. I just did it at a very young age. So I didn't have that. I have to go to conventions to get myself noticed. I want to show my portfolio. I mean, I did a little bit of that in New York, but I was 14 or 15, trying to do that. And by then I was already kind of in comics. So my experience has been a little different. I don't know I think the advice that CC the Geek gave is like the best advice. Getting yourself on panels, getting yourself known that way. Social media now is different than it was when I got into comics. It's a whole different ballgame.
Very much so.
There are people who are very famous who've drawn 3 comic books. And they're the shit. And like you're going social media, you're like, oh man, this is some good stuff. What have you done? And then you look, you say, oh, you haven't done shit. Like, but you've blown, you got all these followers, you've blown yourself up. So there's many different ways to approach, getting that kind of attention and fame now. That there are many more ways now than there were then. But you also have a lot more competition now than you did then.
Yeah.
And you have the same amount trying to get on just like you, and they know all the ways just like you.
Yeah.
How to get on. So how do you separate yourself from that? It's always the next question. It's never the question asked. It's always, okay, what comes after that? So, okay, you get yourself noticed.
Yeah, that's kind of.
What are you saying? What are you talking about?
Yeah. And to BJ's point, that's where like the business acumen comes in. And it's not just being creative and being able to tell a good story. You have to know how to market your product and
yeah.
I used to tell people, one of the things I learned my first Comic-Con is I had to figure out my elevator pitch. Right? Like the way I looked at it is I would always, and if anybody who's ever seen me at a con, they do, I say hi to everybody that walks by who makes eye contact with me.
Same.
So if they just look at my book, I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Now if they do the walk by and they're looking at me.
No, that's me. I'm doing the walk. I'm trying not to make any eye contact. I'm just.
Well, no, I mean if they're still looking at me and they're walking, they're like looking and to see what it is. Yeah. Then I'm like, hey, come on over here. And I always say something stupid like, hey, come on over here. I won't bite.
So you're that guy.
And
I like to lure them in with stickers or something, like sticker or a pen. Like, come over here and have a look. You get a sticker.
but you get that little. Once I got that giggle, I got you.
Right.
And so once you're there, then my mind, I got 30 seconds to convince you to buy this book, and I got to do it in the fastest way possible.
Right.
And I've learned, and I learned a lot by watching other people around me. Is I've seen people who are too abrasive, and I've also seen people who are so lackadaisical. Like I see people sitting and they're on their phone, and people are just walking by.
No.
And they never look up.
Right.
And like first thing, I always say is like, you got to be alert. You got to be ready and understand that you are working.
Yeah.
Like, this is not like, this isn't a vacation. This is like, dude, you got to work. So like at the end of every con, I'm like dog tired.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people who are just starting out. They don't understand how to market themselves, much less their book.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't know how to talk to people, you need to find somebody who knows how to talk to people.
Right.
And I've seen that.
No, because a lot of artists don't know how to talk to people. That's why we're artists.
But I know people. But I'm saying,
that's
I'm
why
saying,
I've seen at home and we like to draw because we don't like to talk to people. We can't.
But I've seen people. I've seen a guy who's been at like every other con that I've done. He's not the artist. There's another guy who's the artist, and he's sitting there drawing. But he's the.
But he got his hype man. He got his hype man.
He's got his hype man. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So find a way is what you're saying.
Find a way. I'm a talker. I'm lucky that I'm able to talk people's ear off. And I can talk to people. Hey, hey, that's a cute dog you got there. Whatever I gotta say to get you to stay here and not walk away with a book. But it's a skill that I think a lot of creators don't realize they have to have until,
or that they need around them at least.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's I don't know that it's reasonable to expect all creators to have people skills, right? Because that part of being an artist is that socially awkward piece of it. To get good at drawing, how much time you got to spend away from other people? I
would say for the most part, most artists are not like that. There are some artists who are very good at it. Jim Lee, Great public speaker. You could get in front of people, talk, no problem. But for every Jim Lee, there's, somebody else who's not that great. So they have to find people to help them with that,
Yeah.
Because for the most part, we're not outgoing, extrovert, or we be actors or something, instead of trying to draw guys in tight underwear with muscles,
Right.
Big muscles.
Yeah, big muscles.
Right. You're like drawing the extrovert that you.
Yeah.
But that's why you got to have your hype man. That's what I'm saying. Like, find a friend who is a talker. Get them, get them to understand the book and whatever your vision and everything, and just put them out there and be like, dude, your job is to get people here.
Yeah.
Or
even if you are a talker, like sometimes it just helps to have some help. Like when I like getting my vice president and assembling my team has been one of the greatest things that to ever happen to me, quite frankly, because it's allowed me the headspace to focus on the vision of the organization and to help make connections with people like you and to like pretty much figure out, well, what direction are we going in, while I have a team of folks who help get, respond to emails and help talk to people. I was on a podcast with I think it was the Moana Nui podcast. And of course, Dana is a co-host and she's on our staff. And it was my vice president, Wendell, and myself. And there was a point where we were talking about like HBCU Con and the mission and all the things that are happening. And Dana and Wendell just went for it. And, I had a moment and I just sat back and let them talk, So I was like, oh, this is nice. It's nice to have a little break where I'm not always the one, spitting out this information, because it can get exhausting and it takes up a lot of your bandwidth to do that.
Yeah, there's definitely power in collaboration, right? And team building, right? Everybody understanding their roles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna put this to the whole panel because it's a very good question. From Philly Born.
That's my man Larry.
Oh, okay. With all this being said, is it easier now or still harder for a person of color to break into comics? I have my answer, but I'd love to hear what you guys have.
I think he said, has Mr. Cohen seen a change in that? So he was specifically directing it towards.
To me?
What? No, that. Oh, he followed it up after.
It was a follow-up.
He was a follow-up after.
He
doesn't care what we think.
Whatever.
I don't care what you guys think. You guys can mute yourselves.
Far more important than I think. You know what? Is it easier or harder for people of color to get into comics now? It's hard for anybody to get into comics now. It's not easy for anybody to get into comics now. It's like one of the lowest paying but hardest things to get into. It's the weird, as you know, it's the weirdest profession. It's like so bizarre.
It really is.
I think now, you might get your stuff looked at a little bit extra if you're a person of color, just because there's more of an awareness of a need to do something,
right?
About that situation. But it's still not easy. It's just not an easy profession to get into. Yeah. Period. Whether you're white or black, or whatever.
It's funny. These conversations remind me so much of the music industry and the conversations I've been having for the last 10 years there.
Yeah.
Where we're living outside of the major label system now. Like, obviously there's still mega stars. There's still people that get record deals and stuff like that. But there's plenty of people that are making what, 50, 60,000 a year, selling hand to hand, right? So the equivalent of you going to cons, pushing your books.
Right.
And I think with the internet, if you know what you're doing, like it's easier to make comics, just like it's easier to make music. It might not be easy to, get a job at one of the two companies, right? Owned by the biggest media companies in the world. But if you want to make a comic book in 2022, like I have an iPad, right? Nick Draper Ivy is making static on an iPad. I don't have his skills, but I have an iPad. right? So it's not harder to make stuff, but with that barrier to entry being so low, like you got to be special. Like there's got to
be very special because everybody can make stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. Everybody can make stuff. And you know, everyone can have access to an iPad and think they're really good.
Right.
You know, and proceed like that. Nick was a special case.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very special case because he really stood out to us. You know, when I saw his stuff on Instagram, which is another great way of getting your stuff seen, believe it or not, as stupid as that is, put your stuff up because people like me are always on it looking for artists. I'm literally looking for artists, you know.
Yeah.
So we were looking for an artist for Static. And people came up and I'm looking and I see Nick's stuff and I see a couple of storytelling pages. I see a lot of single illustrations and I see a couple of storytelling pages. I'm like, well, this kid's kind of good, you know. What if he can actually do comic books? Because he does a comic book style, but let's see. So then I contacted him and he dissed me. He was like, oh, I don't know who you are. Who are you? You ain't no Dennis Cowan. Like it was like a whole thing. He convinced him that I was really me and that this was a legit thing. And I was really asking about Static. And I had to check around. Then I found out who you were. Oh, shit. I'm so sorry. It was very good.
I probably would have did the same thing. This is Dennis. What are you talking about?
Shit. Yeah, what are you talking about? Me drawing Static. What are you talking about?
He's probably gotten spammed from people trying to do his stuff.
Probably, you know, here I am trying to offer him a job. That's another way, and that's how I found several people.
Yeah,
you know,
to your
getting
point,
back to the other
hashtags.
question.
Yeah.
Yes, getting back to your other thing, like that's invaluable.
So
we found out cover artists for hardware, Instagram.
Really?
Yep. Cover artists
on Instagram. We put my stuff
for Icon and Rocket, Instagram.
Oh, nice. So you know, I have an interesting perspective on breaking into comics when it comes to creators, because I feel like, and Dennis, you can tell me I'm wrong or whatever, but I feel like a lot of artists, they're very good pinup artists, but they're not really good storytellers.
You're right. They're not.
So their books are gorgeous.
Art. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Huh?
Thanks. Thank you. I'm not letting you finish. I'm talking over you. So.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think like their art is gorgeous and it's amazing, but when you open a book, you're just like, if it wasn't for the dialogue, the dialogue does so much of the heavy lifting of telling you what's happening, you know. And one of the things, especially as I got started, and people within the industry would read my book or look at my stuff, and they'd be like, look, you need to be able to take the dialogue off your book and people know what's going on and not be confused. And I think a lot of people a lot of creators that I've seen, and I'm never going to put anybody's name out, but a lot of indie creators that I've seen haven't tried to master storytelling within the medium that they're trying to break into. So they have gorgeous looking stuff, but I don't know what's going on. And
what you're talking what you're talking about is a lack of storytelling skills.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the ability to compose a page, have your eye flow from panel to panel, you understand what's going on from beginning to end without necessarily having to read it. Some people just read the dialogue and don't read the captions. Some people just look at the pictures and occasionally read it, but they can still get the whole experience if the story is told right.
Right, but and that's what I'm saying.
That's a lost art. That's an art that's slowly being lost. I mean, my generation of artists, that was drilled into us. Like that was like we were beat up about telling stories. It wasn't about making any pretty pictures. I worked for Neil Adams, all of them, and it was always about storytelling. It was never about the pretty pictures. Now it's about the pretty pictures and not about the storytelling. Unfortunately, it just leaves a lot of readers confused and lost, you know. And we try with the Milestone books to always emphasize storytelling. The wildest person we have is the guy off of Instagram, is Nicholas, you know. And he's guilty of that sometimes, you know. But that's also the exuberance of youth. You know, you're supposed to do all that stuff. You're supposed to be all crazy. But getting back to the thing, it's just a lack. It's a lack of training, and it's a lack of even an awareness that that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Even an awareness in your own work that that's an issue because you think you're doing just great. You know, and you're drawing these pretty pictures, and you think you're doing storytelling, and you're not. People like me are laughing at you. You know, because we can't tell what's going on, and you know, okay. You know, my favorite artists have always been the people who can draw and tell a story. Now, if you want to talk about independent comics, you want to talk about the best independent comic ever, or the best series of independent comics ever, and you want to learn how to do comics and draw comics and do independent comics, just go get Love and Rockets and leave all the rest alone.
Yeah.
Love and Rockets. Go get Jaime Hernandez and Gilbert Hernandez and those boys. Look at that stuff. Look at what they did. What kind of world did they build? That was independent, right? That wasn't Marvel or DC. People wearing Love and Rockets t-shirts now. Bands name themselves after that shit. Like if you want to follow an independent path and just do it your own way, but learn good, solid stuff, that's a great way to look. That's a great place to look.
Can I add another one on there? Yeah. And I don't know if you're gonna agree with me, but Jeff Smith's Bone.
Yeah, Jeff's great.
Like that. That's a path. You know, that's an indie book who, to this day, still has people buying it. It's in schools. You know, like, and the artwork is flawless.
Brilliant. So there's definitely examples to follow. That are good examples of great comic books, a great storytelling, a great art, you know, but they're done in the independent realm. But you know, those guys just studied mainstream comics anyway.
So I'm gonna ask this question, and I want to get everybody's answer from it. You're talking to somebody who is interested in getting into comics. What's your most important piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't do it.
I'm too late, man. You should have told me that like 5 years ago, man. Come on.
I would have been like, there's so many, like filmmaking, there's so many ways you can apply the skills that you want to use of doing comics where you have to do everything. Like these are transferable skills, so you can do other stuff and really make. That's the first thing I would say. If I couldn't talk you out of it, which I probably couldn't, because you're standing there talking to me who didn't get out of it, you know. I would probably say perseverance. Like perseverance in the way you're studying your work, you're studying your drawing and you're practicing. Perseverance in trying to get into comics and learning all the ways to get in. Perseverance in once you get in, staying in and mastering the business and what it means. You know, so much of it is that.
Awesome.
Much of it is just that dogged determination of fucking, I'm just going to do this. You know, no matter what, perseverance is really a lot of it. It's not luck. You make your own luck. You know that. You create your own opportunities through being ready when they present themselves. Right? It's not like lucky, nothing lucky fucking happened to you. You were ready for that shit. Like, okay, I'm ready. I'm here. Like, boom, got it. You know?
Okay.
But that was from your hard work.
Okay.
You know, BJ, everybody. Sarah, everybody. And CC, my favorite. Everybody. You know? It's like, that's what I would say. But the person, don't do it.
Sarah?
Dennis kind of stole my answer a little bit. Like that was that was the very first thing that popped into my head too.
Yeah, right.
Like,
why would you do this?
I was thinking that I never would have gotten into comics if I hadn't been asked to help out for that emergency situation, and then I stayed because I was like I liked what I I liked what I was getting involved in, and but I have noticed, I've learned that perseverance and like not giving up and not letting yourself get discouraged is super important. If you're gonna do this, you're gonna get turned down, and you're gonna get told no, and you're gonna get told your stuff sucks 100 times before you get told that you're good, and that you should, you know, like for every 10 times I get told that my stuff sucks, is like maybe I'll get one person saying your stuff's all right. And that's, I mean, I personally haven't created a lot of actual comic stuff, so I'm not in the position, like I'm the one doing like marketing stuff mostly, because you know, graphic design versus
that's necessary. That's necessary.
That's
very.
I don't
seriously.
Yeah,
please.
It's I'm such an attention whore too, that I'm like, I need to draw the comic too, so that somebody will actually pay attention to me. So that's what I did. I finally actually drew a comic. It's only 2 pages, but to put into elsewhere. But like, yeah, like I finally did it, just so that people would be like, look at me too. But that's the thing, is like you have to be willing to put in the hard work, and you can't just, because like I still don't have the confidence in my drawing skills to go crazy and do like a whole series. I'm not that good. And so you have to like stick to it, and you have to be willing to be told no, and be told that your stuff is bad before, you know, if you can't handle that kind of harshness, if you're not prepared for that harshness, then you're probably not going to want to stick around long. Never mind actually doing it.
Okay. Brandon?
I mean, well, my experience in comics is pretty much purely as a fan, right? So my advice is
fans are important, man.
Right? Like, be dope, like make good product.
My advice is be dope.
Yeah, but the other part is, you know, a lot of people, you know, artists in general have this idea that their art should speak for itself. Like, oh, I don't have to like, but my advice is your art should never have to. Like, it should be good enough to speak for itself, but it should never have to. Like, you need to learn how to introduce things to people. You need to be able to communicate why you deserve the attention over somebody else, especially in a medium like comics, where, you know, you can fill up your house with comic books, or you can buy a PlayStation and have fun, right? So you got to really be able to communicate what that value proposition is.
Okay. CC?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess my first question, I would probably double back to them with the question of why. Like, why do you want to do this? What's the purpose of this? And to, you know, that's just it. To always remember and hone in on your passion and your purpose, because that's ultimately what's going to carry you through, you know, all those no's and all those people telling you suck, or, you know, all those hoops that you're going to have to jump through in order to ultimately meet your goals. And the only other thing I guess I would leave with that is to find your tribe, find a mentor, be a mentor, that like who you surround yourself with can truly make or break you. And that's whether you're in comics or just life in general. That is so essential. So that's kind of what I would add to the pot.
There's one more thing. There's one more thing. I just thought of this, and this is totally true. Comics are a big industry. The only jobs in comics are not just artists and writers.
That's true too.
Right? There's editors, there's assistant editors, there's, you know, I mean, the list is endless of comic book jobs. So don't think that being an artist or a writer is your only way into this industry.
Right.
That's the hardest way into the industry. Right. You know, there are other ways in. If you have other skills, you know, and you know, and you're interested in pursuing that, plenty of people got into comics through those methods. So,
so I'm gonna give mine. Mine's a little more functional than everyone's, and I agree with everybody. So y'all all right. But mine's a little more functional because I'm speaking from perspective, from my personal perspective.
Okay.
My advice would be whatever, if writer, artist, colorist, letter, whatever, try to do all parts of the assembly line. Try to get some experience in doing all of it. If you're a writer, draw your script out as best as you can. so that you can kind of visualize what you kind of want, and that might help you with your writing. Same thing if you're an artist, write a script and then draw the script. If you're a colorist, especially if you're a writer, try lettering. Because you will learn more. You will get rid of so much dialogue. Like I learned that really quickly. Like I would have all this flowery dialogue and it'd be covering up like half of my drawings. And I'd be like, yeah, I worked too hard to cover up this whole drawing. So he's just gonna say, come over here. Like we're just gonna cut this down to like one sentence. But that's my advice is to try to learn every part of the assembly line, because I feel like I have so much more respect for every part of it because I understand how hard every part of it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's actually
That's
really
not bad advice.
the more I think about it, it's like that's really good advice, actually.
There's a lot of sleepless
I wish I
nights
would've
when
said
I
that.
learned how to letter.
I
I
would
learned how to
pretend
letter
I
on the fly. Like my first book, I had no idea how to letter, and I read books, I did everything, and it was just like, man, this is hard. Like the bubbles
Use
have to
Photoshop
like
or Illustrator.
Illustrator.
Okay.
But I like learning how the bubbles fit and how they flow, and it would make me mad. I'd get mad at the artist in me because I put a person on the left instead of the right when the dialogue should have started on the right instead of the left. I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
I'll just say respect to all of you, right? Like I'm in comics as a hobby because I never look at a comic book and feel like I can do that. Like if I listen to enough Jay-Z, I'm like, I can rap, like I'm good. But there's not, I cannot consume enough comics to be like, I can draw like that, or I can make that happen. So
I mean, it just depends on how much you want to work on it, man. I didn't come out the womb drawing, man. I
guess my point
in
is,
a college of art
thought
and
everybody
design. I did art classes for my entire life. Like I've been doing art for a long time, man. I mean, it's a lot of steps to get to where I am now, and there's even more steps from where I am to where Dennis is. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I enjoy my little role as let me hype up this thing that somebody else made. Like I can do that.
That's
I can
valuable.
do that all day.
That's valuable.
Yeah.
Like go buy the Milestone Compendium because
Oh my God.
it's dope, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can do that 80 times a week, but
So
respect to
it's late in the show, and I don't want to keep everybody because I know you're all busy. So we're gonna do one last fun thing.
Okay.
Well, it's fun for me. For those that don't know, I am on another podcast called Top 5 Live, and every week we pick up a topic and we come up with our particular list and we argue about them. I'm not gonna argue on this show, but I would love to hear everybody's top 5 list. So I'm gonna ask each of you to give me your top 5 all-time comic book creators, writer or artist.
Oh my gosh.
What?
All
I know one name everybody better mention.
right.
Yeah, right. What kind of question is that? That's a good question.
So we're mixing the top 5.
Writer, it could be
writer
art,
and-
whatever your favorites. Let me just say favorite. I'll be nice. Favorite creators.
Okay.
No particular order. I won't be that mean to you.
Right. Comics only, right?
Yes, comics only.
I just forgot every single name I ever knew about anybody except Dennis because he's right in front of my face.
I know.
But
Dennis
can
is
I
obviously
say Zach? I mean Zach counts to me, right? Like Zach Dolan, he wrote like Super was his baby, and the art, everything he's ever I've ever seen of his work is insane. So
Okay.
I definitely have to put Zach on the list.
Okay. All right. That's
and
one.
Good, amazing art, solid stories.
This isn't just indie. This is
Yeah.
throughout
Well,
comics.
I mean-
So just letting you all know.
Okay.
So I'll go while you guys are talking. Because I know mine off the top of my head.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say Jack Kirby. I have to give respect to Jack Kirby. I have to give respect to Stan Lee. So I'm gonna go with those two first. Mark Waid is probably my favorite writer. George Perez is number 4. Number 5. Because of the impact and I'm gonna have to go with Neil Adams.
Yep.
I'm a bit of a for those that don't know who watched the show before know I'm a bit of a historian. So like I like a lot of, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of modern artists, but Perez and Kirby and Neil Adams to me, and honestly I could throw like 3 or 4 on there more, but those guys to me kind of helped the comic books medium transform. Each of them transformed it to where it is right now. And the writers, Stan, obviously, Stan is Stan, and I think Mark Waid does a tremendous job of putting a new coat of paint on every character he touches.
He's great.
Yeah.
All right, anybody want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go. Okay. So, and I'm not brown nosing, but Dennis Cohen is on the list. I loved Static Shock. Was like, I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid, so Static Shock was so like, we didn't know how good we had it when we were watching that show. It really meant a lot to me, and kind of reinforced my love for comics. Because I was kind of like you, Sarah, when I was watching like the Saturday morning cartoons and stuff, and then it got me into that medium. I would add to the list of Fool Richardson, Regine Sawyer. I love Ice Witch. I love that comic. And Greg Burnham and Mark Williams. He airs in Search for Sardica.
All right.
I'm big on like period. I'm like you. I love history. So the whole narrative of, the Tuskegee Air's legacy, the Tuskegee Airmen legacy, and then Search for Sardica being based around the Tulsa, massacre is really cool to me. And Ta-Nehisi Coates, I apologize if I butchered his name, but I love, I was really excited and read the Black Panther stuff cover to cover, and it really got me into him, his work, Between the World and Me, and all, even though it's not a comic, but I think that was 5. Was that 5?
That's okay. It's 5-ish.
Honorable mention, David Walker for Bitterroot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Brandon, you want to go?
Sure. Well, Dennis Collins sent love and well wishes when my daughter was born, so he makes the top 5.
There you
right. Go. But no, in all seriousness, I could honestly have my top 5 just be all the Milestone founders, right?
Seriously,
that'd be cheating, but
right.
Dwayne McDuffie's on my list.
Okay.
Like those letters, those editorial, like those letters pages, like there's so much richness there. And just I went and found his old blog, just reading different posts and stuff and scripts. It's the mind is just that's wild. So anyway, Dwayne McDuffie's on my list. Jim Lee's my favorite artist. I love Sanford Green. I love Tom Taylor as a writer right now.
He's good. Yeah.
Kari Randolph, I love his art. Excellence is great.
So good.
Ken Lashley is one of my favorite artists. You got, you can't see because all my art is me, but all my posters in my room are Ken Lashley posters.
I hate all those guys that you're mentioning, by the
way.
And then, that's it, Brandon, man. That's like 6, but I'll let it slide, man.
All right, cool.
We'll just all right. Sarah, we letting the legend go. I'm gonna let the legend go last. So Sarah,
you're talking about
I like it's a given. Like I think it's a given that if you like comics, you know and love like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So I'm not going to include them in my list, but like I have to put Zach in the list just because that was my whole introduction. Like I would not care about comics to this day if it weren't for Zach's stuff. Mike Watson, like, and mine are going to be all indies because those are the people that I read.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I have not jumped into Emerald Quest yet for Mike's, but I think that he sent me the PDF of it. So like I could, but I just really want the book in my hands. So I'm dying to read it. Gail Simone is a bigger name. Like she's big, but like I love her work too. Is that 3? That's 3. Russell Nolte is an excellent writer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Ryan Robinson's art.
Mm.
I love Ryan's art. I love Ryan's art. It's so saturated and like everything I've seen of him is just exploding with color and I love it. So is that 5?
That's fine.
It's like, yeah. And like, Moana and his book is, I'm again, dying to have that book in my hands.
You know, nobody said Javon Stokes, so you know, you guys aren't invited anymore. So that's
Oh
all right.
my God.
I just assumed that we couldn't add. That was too easy.
I'm just playing.
We couldn't add Javon
listen,
Stokes.
I gotta get like 3 or 4 books a lot more before I even try to get there. Anyway, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. You know, for me, my top 5 would have to include the people who taught me, right? Like I'm trying to think of outside influences who were bigger than them. No, there's nobody bigger than them. You know, but my teachers were excellent teachers. So my top 5 would be, you may have to look this guy up, was a artist named Bernie Krigstein.
Oh no, I know Bern. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was my high school art teacher.
Okay.
I was in the High School of Art and Design, and he was the illustration teacher. When I found out
it was
Bernie Krigstein, who did EC Comics, he could not get me out of his class. Nobody else knew. Nobody else even knew his comic stuff, but I was done because I'm trying to get into comics, and I'm going to high school, and there's Bernie Krigstein,
right?
My teachers. Neil Adams. I went to work for Neil when I was like 15 or 16. So he definitely taught me a lot. There's another artist named Rich Buckler.
Yeah.
He taught me, like I was his assistant when I was 14. In fact, that was my first real comics job.
Was it on Black Panther?
No, it was on, he was doing like a lot of DC work. So it was like his All-Star Squadron.
Okay. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff he was doing back then.
Right.
For DC. I worked on a lot of that stuff.
Oh, nice.
So he was one of my heroes, and then it was Neil. Jack Kirby would have to make my list. You know, just the vastness of, there'd be no modern comics without him at all. Period. I don't know how many people is that. 4. That's 3.
4.
That's 4. I got one more. You know, it would probably be someone like a Garcia Lopez.
Oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and the whole school of art that he comes from, that whole Argentinian Spanish tradition of art that led him to where he is, to where he's now like one of the best that's ever done it. I can name a lot of other artists who have major influences on me, but those are the guys. The artists who literally directly, like Garcia Lopez directly said, "This is how you mess this picture up. If I were you, I would do this." And I'm like, just dying. Yeah, I'm just dying because I'm already a professional. And like, this guy's telling me. Walt Simonson is also another name.
Yes, I love Walt's work.
Like there's people like that. So there's Walt Simonson, there's Howard Chaykin.
Yeah,
those are the people who, if you want to learn how to do comics for real and not bullshit, like really learn how to do comics, study Howard Chaykin's work. He's a writer artist. Study Walt Simonson's work. He's a writer artist. You know,
look up American Flag, y'all.
American flag. They'll show you how to do comic books. It's like stripping it. There they are. This is how you do them. You don't need nothing else.
Mm.
So that's more than 5, but
No, you good. Listen, I'm just
they're vital
listening.
names.
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
So it is 9:30, and I don't want to hold you guys any longer. You all are busy people. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, Sarah, Brandon, Cece, and obviously the incomparable Dennis Cohen.
Thank you.
Listen, you're my friend in my head now. I don't know if you care. You're my friend now. So you listen, find me on Facebook, Instagram. Listen, you're my friend now.
Yes,
okay?
we'll do that. We'll do all that.
We'll definitely work this out. But I want to make sure everybody gets, their Chauna with the. I'm butchering your name. I'm terrible.
That's the best one. That's the best one you said all night. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, man. So you guys check out HBCU Con or hbcucon.org.
Yes,
it's going to be an amazing event, and I'm literally dying inside because I can't go. Check out Sarah and what is it? It's Unlikely Heroes Studios.com Kickstarter.
Elsewhere Volume 3 is we got 19 or 20 hours left on it. So
listen, y'all got to make it happen. BJ,
validation.
Is you okay with this one? K Squad Comics?
That's fine. That's my Facebook group where we just nerd out about comics and promote independent creators who are in the group and content creators who are in the group. But if you just Google my name, BJ Kicks, you'll find my channel and other endeavors that I'm involved in.
Oh yeah. And Mr. Cohen, I believe you're still on hardware, right?
I'm still on hardware. Trying to draw the last few issues right now as we speak. That's literally what I'm working on. That's why I keep looking down going,
oh, we not stopping. We never gonna stop Genius from working. Like we gonna let you. We just wait for you to talk. That's all right.
You're funny. But I know I'm just working on hardware these days, and running Milestone along with Reggie, my partner, Reggie Hudlin, and Derek Dingle.
We gonna look out for all that, for all the good stuff. We always got to support Milestone.
Thank you.
They literally kicked in the door for everybody like me to be able to go out there and do my thing. I've always said that Heat is a child of Static, has been for a long time. Even right down to the cover. The cover right there is an homage to Static's first issue. But yes, thank you all. Thank you. And you guys are all welcome to come on my show at any time to talk to any projects you want to talk about.
Thank you.
Please just reach out to me.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me. This was
absolutely
great meeting you guys and seeing BJ. He's probably tired of me. BJ's just tired of me showing up.
Not at all.
You can show up. Hey, if he tired of you, can show up on my show anytime.
I look up, I see.
I'm your new friend. Don't worry about BJ.
Yeah, right. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I have a new friend now. Well, actually,
that's right. He got a new friend. To everybody who's watching next week, we will have the incredible Michael Watson, publisher, founder, and artist of Freestyle Comics.
Right on.
He will be on next Thursday to probably talk about the same stuff we talked about today, but from his perspective, and just talk about his projects. Because I do appreciate love talking about creative entrepreneurship, not just in comics, but across the world, because there's so many ways that creative people are making products that are amazing and that we need to support. So once again, thank you, everybody. Y'all have a great evening, and I'll see you everybody else next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.